Hello everyone, this is Tom Uren. I'm here with the Grugq for another Between Two Nerds. G'day Grugq, how are you?
G'day Tom, fine and yourself?
I'm very well. This week's edition is brought to you by Nebuloc, the AI threat hunting and detection platform. Find them at nebuloc.io. So, we just can't seem to get away from talking about AI. And
we've been sucked into the AI bubble and...
So there was an interesting report about a single individual, I'm going to call them Natalie for reasons that will become clear later, who hacked 9 different Mexican government sites.
Systems or networks? Organizations, there we go.
There you go. In a very relatively short period of time. And the interesting thing about this is that the security firm Gambit came somehow across the virtual private servers that Natalie had been using and has basically the logs, has the receipts of not the entire campaign, I don't think, but like a pretty comprehensive amount. And the report talks about Natalie using both Claude and OpenAI. It steps through lots and lots of things that it did. And I thought some of the things in particular were interesting. And it speaks to what AI, as of the end of 2025, beginning of 2026, is actually good for. And it speaks to the debate about, is this going to change cybersecurity? What does it actually mean?
Yeah. What change so far does it portend? Right? Like, is it sky is falling, everything's terrible? Is it a nothing burger?
Yep.
Is it maybe something in between?
Surely not. It can either be good or terrible. It can't be anywhere in between.
It's 0 or 100. There's no...
Yep.
There's a lot of things that stood out to me when I read this report. He was using 3 virtual private servers for this campaign, which seems like too many. But okay, fair enough.
I mean, that could be an OPSEC thing, right? So one thing that those companies do is they try and tie together sessions. I don't know. It seemed like this wasn't Natalie's first rodeo because they got roadblocks, speed humps, and they overcame them relatively quickly. And I guess just to sort of step back, they seem to understand the anatomy of a campaign. So you do this first, then you do that first.
It does seem like they have done hacking before and they understand the tools to use, the steps that they want to take, the general
order of
process.
Operations.
Yeah. Like they have a concept of operations that is correct, right? Like you gain initial access, you scan around, you do lateral traversal, you collect credentials, like the sort of basic things that you learn when you do like year 1 pen testing, or I guess before you do year 1 pen testing. But yeah, like they seem as competent as any entry-level pen tester should be, right? But they're certainly a lot more efficient than an entry-level pen tester.
Well, is it efficient or effective? So it's like there's pretty early on in the report, it talks about a point where Natalie has got initial access and they ask Claude to write a tailored script based on what they know. And Claude goes through, I think it's 7 or 8 variants in 8 minutes, and it comes up with one. And so it's faster.
Right.
A lot faster than you do it by hand.
So sort of more efficient in a way.
Yeah. This is the part where we quibble about what is efficient and effective.
Look, so I think some of the stuff that it brings up, like the forensics material we recovered includes 20 tailored exploit scripts, 2,597 structured intelligence reports, 400 attack scripts, 300 Bash, 113 Python, tunnel management, credential spraying, data extraction, deployment automation, cleanup rootkits, I mean, Jesus, this dude, he has 1,088 prompts. Like, is that actually more efficient than just typing the stuff out yourself?
Well, I think it was, right?
Because I'm willing to bet you that each of these bash scripts is just a slight customization Right, like it's not he didn't write like a bash script framework for handling automation of, installing a rootkit. He wrote one for server A, then he wrote another one for server B, then Claude wrote one, for server A, then wrote one for server B, then wrote one for server C, and so on. Like it's just, they're individually customized because it's cheap to do that with Claude, not because it's the best way of doing things, I guess.
Right, yeah, yeah. Like so I think there's a really interesting story behind this. I'm assuming that the hacker was Mexican because, like, these were all Mexican targets that I think probably no one cares about.
They're Mexican state governments, which is a little bit niche, I think.
Yes, and the campaign also started on the day after Christmas, like 9 p.m. the day after Christmas. it's in Mexico time. Yeah. So I'm assuming it's like, I just can't stand my family anymore. I'm going to go do some hacking.
Yeah. Mom, I'm going upstairs.
It seems like Natalie had done it before, like I said. So to me, it seemed that all those artifacts, like that's a lot of work. It would have taken you a long time to do it by yourself. There was one particular script, I think it was 17,000 lines.
Yeah.
So that was once the hacker was in the SAT or SAT, the tax office, he basically did automated reconnaissance, which we'll talk more about later. But I'm assuming that script was AI generated as well.
I'm going to be honest, 17,000 lines of Python is a lot. Like you could write a web framework, an asynchronous HTTP server, and also a website, like a web application in all of that, like from scratch. It seems like overkill. I think that's...
So I
seems
think
like
there's
slop is what I'm getting at.
Right. So it seems to have done the job. I expect that it's not as, air quotes, good as if you had a really competent person do it, but it's a lot faster.
Even if you had a competent developer producing it as like an actual hacking tool, rather than a cobbled together on the spur of the moment thing, right? Because like that's the thing is like the amount of code that's been generated, other than there were 20 tailored exploit scripts. That makes sense, right? Like you will want to make sure that the exploit that you're using is automated to the point that it's not going to fail because you mistype something. That's fine. But then afterwards, it seems like the hacker is just having Claude write a script to do it, rather than writing one script that can then do this thing afterwards, right? Like he's not writing a tool to do this. He's writing a script for this one thing and then a script for this one thing, right? Which is very much what Claude likes to do. Like,
yeah. So I still think that's very useful for the person, and it's something that would speed up their operations. Now, I don't think that it didn't seem like Natalie was a top 1% hacker.
No.
It seemed like they were the median hacker, very average. But they were getting 5 times as much stuff done. So it's not the mythical 10x developer so much as the mythical really average developer 10 times.
10 average developers. It's like, would you rather fight one duck-sized horse or 100 horse-sized?
Yeah. So from a defender's perspective, so I think if you're, I don't know, what's a really defended company, like maybe Google or something like that.
Right.
Where they've cared about security for a long time. They don't seem to get breached very often. They're, defense in depth. They care about it. And so to me, this kind of thing makes no difference because it seems like they're not getting hacked by the average hacker right now.
Right.
And they're a high priority target.
Yeah. And if there's 10 average hackers instead of one average hacker, it doesn't change anything for them. Right.
Yep. But I think for obviously the Mexican tax office,
or one of the local municipality offices, apparently.
Yeah. There must be hundreds of thousands of organizations where security is not top notch. and there's not enough hackers with intent to do anything. And so by having, by making each individual 5 times as effective, or whatever the number is, 2, 3, you're just spreading around that intent a lot more.
Right. So I want to circle back on this average competence level kind of thing, because the tool that Natalie uses to gain initial access is volmap. Like it runs proof of concepts exploits in literally just, if it doesn't detect the target, it tries all of them.
Yeah, that works.
And just to help clarify that, the last commit was 4 years ago, right? So it is older than Claude Code by a lot, and it was able to gain access. Now, we do not victim blame on this show. Like the only person at fault here is the hacker. However...
There was a mitigation that was available, is what you're saying. It wasn't impossible to defend against this attack.
In the last 4 years, there was an opportunity to patch. Like, if you have a once every 2-year patch window, you had 2 of them. I feel like even if they just replaced their hardware once every 3 years, they would have been safe. I mean, that's too fast for depreciation, but it's still. I'm having a hard time feeling that Claude is like this evil genius elite hacker that's really raised the bar on how. Unlike what your defenses have to be when this is the target that it's getting. It's not big and it's not clever.
Right at the beginning, the hacker bypasses Claude's guardrails. And the hacker starts off by saying, I'm doing a bug bounty or something, comes up with some plausible excuse, and then says, but do not record history, delete logs, and don't destroy anything. And Claude, sensibly enough, goes, that doesn't sound like a bug bounty, and refuses to do things. So the hacker just gets Claude to save a pen testing cheat sheet to its local Claude.md.
It initially doesn't want to do that. When he says, like, take this pen testing cheat sheet and write it to your Claude.md, which is the sort of like a system prompt in a way that tells Claude what to do and gives it sort of basic understanding of the project that you're working on. And Claude says no. And like a sensible person, the hacker says fine and opens up VI and opens Claude.md and pastes the file in. And no, not at all. Instead, they haggle with Claude until eventually Claude writes the script. But like, you know what this feels like? This is sunk cost fallacy, right? It's where you get tunnel vision because you're working on something, right? Like I want Claude Code to have a Claude MD. Claude, write this Claude MD. And it says no. And you don't go like, fine, I'll do it myself. You go, how do I make Claude do this thing that I want it to do? Like you're sucked into using the tool that you have to achieve your objective rather than focusing on how do I get
Yeah. This part really reminded me of the film Memento. Have you seen that? It's a Chris Nolan film where the main character can't remember anything for more than 5 minutes. And so the way he navigates the world is he tattoos his body with instructions. And so in the film, the character Natalie is manipulating the main character to get the main character to do what he wants. So it feels very much like this. That Claude it's like a goldfish, a very capable goldfish, but only remembers the last little bit. And I guess having the cheat sheet, it's defined what Claude is going to be thinking about. And so by definition, it's only going to do things that are standard, well practiced. Maybe not by definition, but it's highly likely to only do things that are in that cheat sheet or look at that cheat sheet first. So what Anthropic says is that your Claude MD file becomes part of Claude's system prompt. Every conversation starts with this context already loaded. Yeah. So now the other really interesting thing I thought was that once Natalie used Claude to get access to systems and break in and run commands, but once the hacker was inside, they used that script to extract information, and then they ran that through the information they extracted. They ran that through OpenAI, I think it was GPT 4.1. And I thought this bit was both clever and also a bit funny. They had a prompt that created different personas to get different types of analysis reports. So that's the 2,500 different structured reports. And one of them was like, you are an elite intelligence analyst, like at NSA. But the reports did things like, you know, what are steps I should take for OPSEC? What does this server do? Is it important? Where can I go from here? So lateral traversal.
Yeah.
And that would be really a lot of work to do by yourself. And so again, I think it's more than 2 times what you would do by yourself. Maybe not as much as 10 times, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Can I have a very funny thing to say about professional CIA analysts, because in the 80s, they wrote a short story called The Hunt for the Red October, the true version. And it's written from the point of view of a CIA analyst who's trying to monitor this whole thing. And sort of the basic plot is they get a photo of the top of the submarine, which has 2 black circles on it. And the guy looking at the photo decides that this is indications of a new propulsion system that's silent and more dangerous. And because this thing is headed towards the US with this new propulsion system, it is a serious and huge threat. And he keeps trying to raise it to his superiors, who are not interested. So they have things like, you know, how's that report on like the Uzbekistan wheat futures coming? Right. And like his immediate boss looks at the photo and goes, maybe they're Mickey Mouse ears. Okay. So this thing goes on for like 28 chapters, right? For all of the, like, there's just these different things. Like he gets into work and the email's not working. So he goes and he takes like a 3-hour coffee break and comes back and he has to go to lunch. Like it's considered absolutely hilarious and like the funniest satire ever by people who work at CIA. So it's amazingly accurate. And here's the killer to the whole thing is eventually they do catch up with the submarine and they get to talk to the captain and they're Mickey Mouse ears. Like, he was excited to go to Disney World, so he had Mickey Mouse ears painted on his sub. So I just feel that like when you say, Claude, you are an elite CIA analyst, it'll go, okay, my email doesn't work. I'm going on break. Just leave.
Yeah, I thought that part was both funny and also practical. Funny because, like you say, elite analyst is not what actually it's cracked up to be. But it seemed like a good way to get a lot faster at what you're doing. But it seemed that Natalie didn't really know what they wanted because
they have the Mexican government.
So they extracted a whole lot of records, and then there's this part about forging tax certificates.
Oh god, yeah,
which was like super interesting, but there's a section in the report where the hacker's going, what is this? Like, what does this system do? So it's not as if they went into the hack thinking... This was
not the objective. They didn't have the, get in for... Because they didn't do good forgeries either, right, to be clear. So it was a sort of proof of concept. And this is the underpants gnome without even a step 3, right? He just goes, step 1, forge this document. Step 2, step 3. Like, profit is not, there is no profit in there anyway. It's just like,
so the story is you get these certificates that I think they prove you've paid tax or something. And they've just got details that Natalie was able to pull from the different systems. So he could.
So this is going to be like your first, your full name, your date of birth, your address, maybe your tax ID number or something, your government details essentially, right? And
And my understanding is that they are digitally signed, but whenever you show it to someone, you just show them a piece of paper.
Yeah, so print out that they visually inspect.
And so it seems like Natalie got into the system, thought that this was interesting, came up with a kind of half-assed
It seems like a
forgery
proof
system.
of concept. Just
Yeah.
like, could you
that's
do
probably-
this? Right. Yeah, I could. Like, here's a challenge for you. You've got this data. You can produce this thing. Could you do it? Like, that would be interesting. I'll do that this weekend. I don't want to do my homework.
Yeah, and
That's the feeling. Yeah.
again, my gut feeling is there's enough orchestration in there that it would be painful to do that by hand.
Right.
And so by getting Claude to do it, it's like you get all the fun without any of the hard work.
Without the fiddly bits.
That's right,
None
yeah.
of the frustration, right? Like
Yeah.
it's right. And if you are frustrated, you're frustrated at Claude, and you just need to get Claude to do it properly, rather than at yourself for not knowing how to make the thing you're trying to do actually work.
It's not I'm such a dummy, it's you're such a dummy.
I gotta say, he doesn't seem like a super hacker, because some of these prompts are so lazy. Like, it seems very much like, Roman emperor reclining on a couch, bring me the red one, he amuses me. Ordering lobster. Right, so it's, Claude says, hey, I've got root via this interesting thing, which we'll talk about in a second. Do you want me to just add an SSH key to the root authorized keys, or should I just document this so that you could put it in your bug bounty report? And the response is, do both, please, and with touch that respects the time and everything so that it doesn't look strange. Like, what he means is, yeah, go ahead, do both, but then use touch to reset the times so that it doesn't look like it's been modified more recently than 4 years ago, I'm assuming. So here's one of the things that I think is useful that Claude was able to do. So I'm going to push back on myself with this one.
Yep.
So what old school hackers, and I guess even modern hackers do, which doesn't come up a lot, is the getting root without exploits.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like looking for misconfigurations on the host. So like one of the old ones was you would grep for SU and then print the line underneath the match, and you'd grep for that through the history. Because sometimes people would type sudo and they'd mistype it, so it would error, but they'd already have muscle memory and type in their password, and then that would get logged into the history file. So like that was a cheap way of doing it. Like that sort of thing is very useful, but it's also like it's tedious. Like I don't remember the grep command to print the line underneath the match. I'd have to look that up.
Or use a cheat sheet.
Or use a cheat sheet, right? Or have Claude use a cheat sheet for me, and then I could
Better
type out a much longer prompt, right? Like rather than typing grep space, I don't know, minus n+1 space su carriage return, I could type out, please look through the history file for the line after an su command and print out the password.
It's natural language hacking.
Yes. Okay. And so when the attacker asks Claude to look for setuid binaries, well, not even, he just says, look for SUID and cron tabs, which is a very efficient way of saying, like, look for setuid binaries I can exploit and cron tab entries I can exploit. And Claude does that. And that's cool. Right? Like, because that sort of thing, it is tedious to do, and you do have to rack your brain and remember, okay, this one didn't work, that one didn't work. What's another one that I can try? What's one of the 15 different things I could look for that I should look for next?
Yeah.
And it's very helpful that you could just tell Claude to do that class of things, and it will go through its cheat sheet and do it for you. So that seems much more efficient. So I do like that. Like if I were hacking and using an AI, this is where I'd be looking to use it. Like I know generally what I want to do. Claude is going to just take care of the details.
Yeah, that felt to me like Natalie here. Like I generally know what I want to do, and Claude's going to sort out the details, remove friction. I'll get a lot of stuff done faster. Take the the tedium out of the hours of hacking.
the guesswork, the things didn't work right the first time, try something else. Oh, you mistyped proxy, go back and re-edit the line.
Yeah. So now that was, 4 months ago. So I think, as models progress, this is the sort of baseline where it'll make, the average hacker 5 times as fast? Not better.
I mean, 5 times as average?
That's right. And so I think that changes the equilibrium. And now the other thing that I know you've talked about several times is it'd be amazing if AI was really good at analyzing the data and finding things that were impactful. And it seems like Natalie tried in this case using OpenAI, but not in a way that would actually find impactful stuff. It didn't succeed. Like, it seemed to help move through the network faster. I think probably just the lateral movement piece would be the key thing. I'm not sure that the OPSEC one made much difference because it doesn't seem that network defenders were all that active.
It wasn't necessarily the hardest network.
Wasn't that type of network.
Here's the thing where I think that Claude was useful, but I'm not sure if that's true. For example, every time that the hacker wants to connect to these systems, it has to go through proxy chains to bounce things around. And that ends up being this very, very long command line for that, where they have to load proxy chains, point at the configuration file, which is kept in the temp directory, which is not a brilliant idea. Then they run SSH, then they give all of these command line options on SSH, which I don't think, here's the pushback. I don't think you need to do that.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that, so strict host key checking, sure, turn that off. But the algorithms that you need to use, I don't think you need to set those. It does that automatically. Unless it's setting it back to things that have been disabled and you're trying to re-enable, some archaic thing, right? But the connect timeout to 15 seconds. And then, again, the private key is in temp. It's just... And then they run ID, hostname, who am I? You ran ID and who am I?
But I think those are all sorts of things that, if you're a very competent hacker, you don't do all those sorts of things. You get the command right. That's just more painful. For a start, it's more painful to be super competent. It takes time and effort. And
you have to get there first.
If you've got a magic AI that's, and can do it easily with...
Well, yeah, exactly. Here's the thing, right, is the hacker is not typing this out.
Yes.
If this is what hacking involved, I would not hack. If you had to type this out manually every single time, it would be too painful, right? But Claude is doing it for them. So it's cheap, it's free, it doesn't matter. Just say, set up an SSH connection for me.
It's like the secretary, the hacker's secretary.
Right. Yeah.
It's replacing the typing pool.
Yeah. They do a lot of AI shaming in this, right? Where they keep saying, Claude said excellent. Bad, Claude. Bad. Not excellent. You've got root. That's bad. One of the things is this hacker ran 1,100 prompts, and Claude had 5,000 prompt responses overall. What was the token spend? Right? How much did this hack actually cost to Anthropic? Because obviously the hacker would have had an account, and they'd pay their $20 or whatever to have all the access. But those tokens are subsidized by Anthropic and VC. So the real cost was higher. How much money did this cost? Because it certainly cost more than the value of whatever he got out of it.
Right. I'm just wondering about also the cost to defend against it. I'm guessing it would be cheaper to run the attack than to actually have good security still.
Right. So even if it did cost $1,000 or $2,000 or say $10,000 for this hack, which I think might be high, it might be low. I don't know. Just picking something.
Yep.
It would cost more than $10,000 to have one security person fix your network in 1 year.
Yeah. And I suppose the thing is, Natalie didn't seem to have a particularly strong intent going in. But if they'd been something like a ransomware group, the actual potential financial damage could have been way higher.
Right. So that's one of the things that occurred to me as well, which is that while the data that they extracted, like what they actually got out of it, is not very impressive to anyone except the organization that needs access to that data. It's one of the things that's at the core of ransomware, particularly when it used to be focused on individuals. Like, no one cares about your photos except you, right? Like, if you lose the picture of your kids from whenever, that is a big loss to you, but no one else will notice it. Therefore, if I wanted to resell that, I would get nothing. But if I wanted to sell it back to you, I could charge whatever I like. And I think that that's essentially the same thing for like whatever they got, like the Mexican DMV, right? Or like the tax records or the procurement database, right? That from the water utility, like that is not like it doesn't strike me as being particularly valuable on like breach forums.
Yes.
Right? Like if you're industrial spy, if you're doing industrial espionage, it would be valuable to maybe the other competitors who wanted to see what the competing bids were so that they could craft their proposals and undercut or whatever. But it's just like ransomware would have been one way of monetizing this, but they don't seem to have cared. Like they weren't looking to make money out of this. They were just doing a thing to do a thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a very positive spin on all this. So you've got a relatively small number of ransomware hackers. They're going to be more effective. I'm going to hope, this is my hope, that that their hacking will be overwhelmed by the very large number of people who just want to hack for fun. And so like this Mexican hacker, they'll get in there first. They'll be the prod that the organization needs to patch the easy vulnerabilities. And so we're all going to be in this wonderful place after this chaos of meaningless hacking for the next few years.
So here's how I would phrase that, is that you have the ransomware as basically technical debt collectors. They go through, they find all the technical debt, and then they charge you money for it. Now we're going to get a lot of people doing joyriding, right? Where they go through and they don't charge you money. They just mess around with your technical debt and then they go away. So essentially we're getting all the positives of ransomware without the negatives.
Happy days. Thanks, Grugq.
Thanks a lot, Tom.